Have you ever felt as though life has quietly turned away from you, not with a storm, not with a fight, but with an eerie stillness? Friends gradually slip out of reach. Opportunities once within your grasp seem to vanish. The phone, once buzzing with connection, falls silent. At first you might think something is wrong, with the world, or worse, with you. But what if this silence isn't abandonment? What if it's an invitation? Renowned psychologist Carl Jung believed that these quiet seasons of solitude are far from accidental. They are, in fact, sacred initiations, moments when the soul begins to prepare us for a deeper evolution. When the external noise subsides and all distractions fall away, we're left face to face with the one person we often spend our entire lives avoiding, ourselves. It's a confrontation that can feel uncomfortable, even agonizing. But within that inner stillness lies the potential for something profound, a rebirth. In this video, we'll journey into the hidden psychological and spiritual dimensions of solitude through the wisdom of Carl Jung. You'll discover why isolation is not a curse but a critical turning point, how it can open the door to shadow work, uncovering hidden parts of the self, and ultimately guide you toward powerful inner transformation. This isn't just about being alone. It's about being remade. If you're ready to explore the deeper purpose behind your quiet seasons, make sure to subscribe and join our growing community. Together, we're walking the path of personal and spiritual growth, one awakening at a time. Let's take a deeper look at how Carl Jung understood solitude, not as suffering but as sacred ground. To Jung, isolation wasn't just a painful byproduct of a chaotic, disconnected world. It was something far more essential, an initiation into the evolution of the self. In the language of depth psychology, solitude is not an empty void. It is a vessel, a space deliberately carved by the soul, not by chance, but by necessity. True transformation, Jung believed, cannot unfold amidst constant noise, distraction, or the need for external validation. It begins only when we step back from the roles we've been conditioned to play, from the versions of ourselves we've been taught to maintain. When life strips away your momentum, when relationships fall away, when the noise dies down, it's not punishment, it's preparation. While many see loneliness as a sign of failure or abandonment, Jung saw something radically different. He saw a sacred initiation, a soul-level summons into the inner wilderness, a journey that cannot begin until you're separated from the crowd, from the mirrors of others. Because only when you're truly alone do you meet the raw, unfiltered reflection of your own being, and though that first encounter may feel cold, unfamiliar, even terrifying, it marks the beginning of something extraordinary, the process Jung called individuation, the lifelong path of becoming whole. This process doesn't ask you to add more to yourself. It asks you to shed, to peel away the inherited masks, outdated beliefs, and conditioned behaviors that no longer serve you. Solitude, then, is not a void. It's a threshold. When the outer world falls silent, the inner world begins to speak. But it doesn't speak in calm, soothing words. It speaks in fragments, in buried memories, unprocessed grief, lingering shame, and emotions you thought you'd long escaped. This is the shadow, a term Jung used for all that we've repressed, denied, or disowned within ourselves. In our everyday lives, it's easy to keep the shadow at bay. We perform, stay busy, chase distractions. But in solitude, there's nowhere left to run. The old wounds rise, the suppressed rage, the hidden envy, the aching sadness. Not to torment you, but to be seen. And this is where most people get scared. They mistake the pain for a breakdown. But it's not a sign of falling apart. It's a sign that something deep within you is finally breaking open. Jung believed these shadow elements weren't monsters to be defeated. They were messengers, fragments of your truth, your energy, your instincts. parts of you that had to be hidden away to survive. The work isn't to fight the shadow. The work is to integrate it, to meet your fear with curiosity, to sit with what you once rejected, to listen deeply to the voice beneath the noise. This is shadow work, and solitude is its sacred ground. In facing what we've long denied, we begin to reclaim ourselves fully, fiercely, and honestly. And because this journey can be intense, let's pause here. Take a breath. If this video resonates with you, consider sharing it with someone who may need to hear these words. And if you'd like to support this channel and help us reach more seekers on the path of inner growth, sharing this video on other platforms would mean the world to us. Now let's continue. After the confrontation with the shadow, something begins to shift, not with fireworks, but with a subtle, almost imperceptible grace. The mind, once tangled in distractions and avoidance, begins to quiet. And in that stillness, you start to feel something rare, your own presence, not as a reaction to others, not as a role to perform, but as a steady, self-sustaining force. The silence that once felt heavy begins to feel sacred. The emptiness that once seemed like loss begins to open into freedom. This is the slow, quiet rebirth that solitude makes possible. It's not about reinventing yourself, it's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Carl Jung called this process individuation, but we might just as easily call it homecoming. You begin to remember what brings you peace, what sparks your curiosity, what feels meaningful, not when you're being watched, but when you're utterly alone. With that clarity, something beautiful happens. The ego softens. The part of you that chases approval and clings to validation begins to let go. You no longer need to be seen to feel real. You no longer need to be understood to feel worthy. This shift is quiet, but it's revolutionary, because this kind of peace can't be bought, taught, or performed. It can only be felt in the stillness, in the discomfort, in the sacred practice of simply being with yourself. And once you've touched it, even for a moment, you see your life with new eyes. You recognize how much of it was spent running from discomfort, from truth, from yourself. Eventually, solitude begins to release you. But you don't return to life the same. You don't go back to what was. You go forward, carrying everything you've uncovered. Jung believed that transformation isn't complete until it's lived. The truths you unearthed, the parts of yourself you reclaimed, they must now be woven into your daily life. And so you begin to live more deliberately. You choose your relationships with more care. You speak more honestly. You protect your energy, because you no longer need to belong everywhere. You belong to yourself. That inner rootedness, the quiet knowing that no one can give or take away, is your compass now. And yes, others may not understand the changes in you. Some might drift away, but you've already survived being alone. You're not afraid of it anymore. And that changes everything. You no longer abandon yourself for acceptance. You no longer outsource your worth. In a world where so many are disconnected from themselves, your presence becomes rare, not because it demands attention, but because it radiates alignment. This is what Jung meant by individuation, a return to the world not as a fragmented persona, but as a whole human being. And in that wholeness, you don't just live, you embody your truth. That embodiment is healing, not only for you, but for those around you. Solitude, though often feared, is one of the most honest teachers you will ever meet. It doesn't flatter, it doesn't distract, it reveals. It peels away the false identities, the borrowed beliefs, the noise, until all that's left is you. Raw, real, whole. Carl Jung understood this better than most, that the path inward is rarely easy, but it is always sacred. So if you're on that path, whether deep in the solitude or just beginning to hear its call, remember this: You're not falling behind. You're returning to yourself, slowly, truthfully, powerfully. You entered solitude as a question. Now you return carrying the answer. And now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a season of deep isolation that changed you? What did you discover in that silence? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every one, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. If this message resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel. Here, we explore the intersection of psychology, philosophy, and self-discovery, without the fluff. Just real ideas for real inner work. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and above all, stay connected to your true self.